We are back. It is the Working Brother for another talk with John Bosnitch. He took off his tie in the last talk. We went into all kinds of rabbit holes and history lessons as well as conspiracy theories. Some jokes
There's no conspiracy theories. It's just conspiracies.
time-traveling Russians that plant stuff into historical books. You just don't know. You just don't know. I'm just saying, like, you know, the narratives of the West have become so ridiculous that, like, previous guests have, you know, brought up, you know, historical facts, like George, I'll leave a link somewhere here, who's brought up, you know, the Heartland theory and Mackinder and stuff like that. And the only way I can get that kind of, you know, Russian propaganda on here is to like admit basically that it's time traveling Russian propaganda.
Okay.
Now back to the Bosnitch saga.
Reality is stranger than fiction.
You have no idea. You have no idea.
Why is that? Let's just look. Mathematician, right? Engineer.
Mm-hmm.
Why is reality stranger than fiction? Very simple answer. Fiction, in 99.9% of the cases, is the work of one author. Reality is the work of billions of authors. Which one is going to have more variables?
Mm-hmm. Interesting way to look at it.
No human being can imagine what all the other human beings could think up. Therefore, reality is always, by definition, stranger than fiction, because fiction is the writing of one person's imagination.
Yeah.
And reality is the product of at least hundreds of thousands of elites who determine what happens in their particular territories. So reality is always stranger than fiction.
Let's get back to the John Bosnitch saga, which I say saga in, like, you know, cliche kind of way, in the sense that, like, epic story.
Well, there was.
We were leaving the Himalayas and almost got to Japan. No, we got to Japan, and you were about to.
I went to Canada. I sold the Persian carpets, the silk carpets. I got the money, packed my bags, and went to Japan. I come to Japan. I find this consultancy firm. And I tell them, we're not paying the 50, we're not closing down. And I look at the consultant clients, and these are the company presidents of the major company, Akio Morita, president of Sony. These are the clients.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've never been a consultant, but I've been an active political figure since high school. In high school student government, I even ran for mayor of Fredericton. I ran at age 22. I ran to be the mayor of the provincial capital of my province. Remember Neue Braunschweig, New Brunswick? So I ran to be the mayor of Fredericton, where the King's brother's town. And I got 36% of the vote at age 22 against a 4-term mayor who was supported against me, against a student radical who was being expelled from university.
Radical.
He was supported, The mayor was supported by the Conservative Party, which he belonged to, the Liberal Party, which was apparently supposed to be his opponent, and the New Democratic Party, which is the Socialist Party. So all three federal parties supported the mayor against a 22-year-old student. And the 22-year-old student had almost zero media time. I had no money. I bought one ad for $500 in one newspaper, and I took 36% of the vote. And then they decided they had to shut me down. Because if I took 36% of the vote in running for mayor at age 22, what in the world is going to happen now that I control an FM radio station, a television station, a student union building that has enough room for 5,000 people around the building, and we're broadcasting 24/7 our ideas on an FM radio station that reaches 3/4 of the province of New Brunswick and into the state of Maine. And I mean, look, I'm 62 now, and I've slowed down a bit. You imagine me at 23, 24 with a microphone and a TV station and a 24/7 radio? Okay, this was time to shut us down. They sent the police in. They sent the police in. They arrested us. They seized the student union building. They appointed a new government for the student council, illegally, violated the charter. They violated the Corporation Act. We have an independent corporation that the students set up. We're the shareholders. They cannot lock us out. They're not members of the corporation. They're not shareholders. They're not directors. They locked us out. They sent in the police. They took us out with guns, locked us off the campus, and barred us from the campus for life. Okay. Now, my hometown of Fredericton, remember the King's Brothers town, is a university town in which the university campus occupies more than 30% of the territory of the town. Now, on a summary order called the Trespass Act, which needs no trial, no hearing, no judicial activity, I was banned for life from 30% of my hometown. If I so much as crossed it in a taxi, I'd be arrested. I'd do 60 days in jail immediately. And on a summary conviction, I could be kept for unlimited term. Not limited. I'm not hearing you on my end, but I don't hear your voice now. I don't know.
Sorry, I muted myself. I muted myself when I was coughing. I was saying it sounds democratic. What you're describing sounds like a bastion of freedom.
I mean, this is why I supported the truckers who were objecting to
the truckers. We were going to get into the truckers. Honk, honk.
I just want to tell you, I respect those people because they live in a dictatorship. And it's a dictatorship that has the best makeup act that you've ever seen, the best cover, the best presentation of peaceful Canada, the Canada that invaded Afghanistan.
We're sorry, eh?
Yep. The Canada that blew the heads off of people who are 6 foot tall because it might be bin Laden. The Canada that wanted to intervene in Syria. The Canada that has become Hopalong Cassidy to the American military-industrial complex empire.
What's Hopalong Cassidy?
Hopalong Cassidy was a guy who was a Western film series, and he used to run behind the hero, like run behind the hero who would be like the Lone Ranger. And go, what are we gonna do, boss? What are we gonna do, boss? That's Canada now. Elliott Trudeau, the father of Justin Trudeau, created something called FIRA, F-I-R-A, the Foreign
Russian propaganda.
No, this is just true. Look it up. FIRA.
Comedy show, John. Comedy show. Come on, Russian propaganda.
But the joke's on Canadians, so we got to learn.
Oh, Canadians, leave a comment.
Yeah, it is. Every Canadian knows this. Pierre Elliott Trudeau, the father of this current prime minister, was a leftist who was first a member of the Communist Party, who traveled, he was a separatist too. He traveled to Cuba as a young man. He then converted himself, became a federalist, joined the Liberal Party.
Wait, what's a separatist and what's a federalist in Canada?
Federalist wants to keep Canada together. Separatist wants independent Quebec.
Okay. Quebecois separatist. That's not like separatists from the British in that sense.
No, we are separate from the British insofar as they no longer control our government.
Can't the Queen formerly and now the King dissolve your parliament?
Trudeau changed that. Trudeau.
Oh, for real?
Trudeau was a leftist. His father.
Mm-hmm.
Pierre Elliott Trudeau patriated the Constitution. So the Constitution used to be an act of the English Parliament, and he took Canada, passed it by Parliament, made it the Canadian Constitution under the control solely of Canada. And he said the Queen no longer gets to sign the laws in Canada, but the Governor General. And the Governor General acts as the head of state, not the Queen. And the Governor General is named by the Prime Minister of Canada with the consent of the Queen. Of course, she's never going to refuse who he names. So basically, the Prime Minister picks the head of state, the sort of functional head of state, and that guy is just a rubber stamper for the laws.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The same Trudeau was anti-American, and he was anti-Vietnam War, and he was anti-American empire.
This is the father Trudeau.
Father of this Trudeau.
Yeah.
He married a beautiful young woman, Margaret Trudeau. She was Margaret Sinclair, the daughter of an ultra-rich, I think, pulp and paper industry magnate in Vancouver, English part of Canada. He was swept into power before he got married. Then he married her, and he created something called the Foreign Investment Review Agency, FIRA. And what it did was it reviewed American ownership of Canadian corporations and said if it's a strategic corporation, Americans cannot own more than 49%. This is kind of a mini version of Ukraine turning against Russia. Mm-hmm. Canada was America's Ukraine. And Trudeau said, we're not going to take orders from you. So America tried to crush Trudeau. Trudeau stayed in power. His wife became mentally ill. She started dancing at Studio 54 with no panties on, got photographed that way. She apparently had an affair with Fidel Castro.
Studio 54, is that nightclub?
Studio 54, the number one disco in America.
Yeah.
Then the nightlife capital of America, Studio 54. So she was photographed in Studio 54 with no underwear on, squatting there and talking to the Rolling Stones. She just went AWOL, the first woman of Canada. Of course, he had to divorce her. He divorced her. She became manic depressive or bipolar, and he died shortly after, and she raised Justin Trudeau by herself. Without the father. Justin Trudeau had an older brother who was supposed to be the successor to his father. Like George Bush Jr. was replacing George Bush Sr., the CIA chief. Justin Trudeau's brother died in an avalanche up in the Rockies in Canada, apparently rumored when he was smoking dope, because his father smoked marijuana and he smoked marijuana, and Justin smoked marijuana, the current prime minister smoked marijuana. Well, apparently the brother got wasted and skied down a crevasse and died. So the second son, Justin, who was never supposed to be a politician, got recruited by the Liberal Party, who said, we're going to package you, boy. You're going to be the next prime minister, because it's dynastic politics in North America. If you're the son of a prime minister, or you're the son of a president, you're basically going to be the next president. It's a monarchy without a crown. So they pulled Justin
Russian
Trudeau
propaganda.
out.
You're just full of it. I don't know what your sources are.
Read up. They pulled Justin Trudeau out of
Yeah, I know. Unfortunately, I know. I know too much.
They pulled him out of an acting class and said, hey, boy, you want to do a new part? He goes, what? I said, prime minister. They didn't let the press touch him. They took photos of him holding babies and giving flowers to women, giving speeches that are written by scriptwriters who work for the deep state. And because his mother, Margaret, was unstable, really had mental problems, she disappeared, and was lost and found and whatever. So a couple of right-wing imperial bankers came to her and said, we'd like to educate your son and help him to learn to go forward. So they basically took over the training and the upbringing of Justin Trudeau and turned him into the Prime Minister of Canada. So the son of a leftist, socialist, anti-American, anti-foreign investment Prime Minister gets co-opted by the deep state. And because he's got the name Trudeau, all the Canadians vote for him because Prime Minister. And then he fully supports every war that the deep state does. And he goes to Putin and says, I'm going to teach that Putin a lesson, because he's been trained to hate Putin like a rabid attack dog. Putin is a judo master. Here's Trudeau wants to push him around because Trudeau says it to the media in Canada. I'm going to push Putin around. That's a dictator, Russian dictator. Putin, who continually wins elections. Putin, who Gallup poll, not Russian Izvestia poll or TASS poll. Putin, who Gallup poll says has the highest public support of any leader in all of Europe. Keep calm, wait for the Russians. There you go. Gallup confirms Putin is the most popular elected leader in the history of Russia. Of course, he's the first real democratic leader. The Tsar, the communist dictatorship, Putin. Putin, former communist, realizes that communism is done. He goes back to his home country from being a secret agent in East Germany, where he speaks perfect German and has really good relations with Angela Merkel, who had links to the Communist Party.
Yeah, she was like the head of the student Communist Party or some shit like that in Eastern DDR Germany, I think.
He takes a look back at his home country and he sees Yeltsin in power. And he sees Yeltsin taking bribes, and he sees Yeltsin's daughter taking bribes, and he sees Yeltsin selling all of the oil and gas of Russia for cents on the dollar in return
democracy, freedom, America.
And at this time, I'm advising Prime Minister in Japan. And I'm routinely flying back and forth I still living as cheap as I can. No reason to waste money. So I always flew Korean Airlines, the one that got shut down. I flew that flight. Korean Airlines from New York.
What do you mean the one that got shot down, for those who don't know?
Well, I think it was flight 047 or 049 or something. Many years ago, a Korean Airlines flight was shot down over Russian airspace.
It strayed basically off course a little bit.
It strayed 200 kilometers over a Russian military object. And the Russians just shot it down. Because it probably, I'm sorry to say, it probably was spying.
The Soviets.
Yeah, right. But Koreans were just an American colony, and they still are. So if the Americans told them, put this camera on the bottom or put this remote sensing gear on the bottom of the plane, they did. And the Russians probably picked up the ping or the reflection of their scans, and they shot the plane down. Or they just shot the plane down because it entered their airspace without any flight control. That's the same flight I used. It goes New York, Seoul. You got a stopover in Seoul, and then Seoul, Tokyo. So you can fly that way with that inconvenience of the Seoul stopover for a half or 1/3 the price. And since I went to visit my aging parents and to take my newborn kids back and forth to spend time with their grandparents, I was always using the cheapest flight, which was KAL, and I was using it at least 4 times a year. So big deal. During this time, I realized that I saw the relationship that America had with the Koreans. It was just like master servant. Koreans weren't allowed to go in certain places in Korea, just like Japanese are not allowed to go in certain American-controlled places in Japan. The best beaches in Okinawa, no Japanese allowed on them. just Americans
Really?
in Japan. So I
Not
started to think.
surprised. I just didn't know.
So I started to watch what was going on, and I saw the Americans had American banksters had hired up a group of 8 oligarchs: Kolomoisky, Berezovsky, so on and so on.
You just had to say the name, so just like for the
Okay, so
algorithm.
we'll watch this. These guys got money from banksters in New York. They were full of cash. The communist state collapsed and they privatized the communist state. And they used a privatization scheme brought to them by American experts. And they said, well, the best way to privatize is we'll give shares to all the citizens. So you've got an amazing multi-billion-dollar oil field, and you give every person in Russia a share that's worth $2.
Yeah.
Or you give him 10 shares.
Mhm.
Now he's got $20. And then you put an ad out and you say, "We'll buy those shares from you for buy this from you for cash right now, cash, American dollars. We'll give you cash." And nobody has any money in Russia. This cash is zero. And these guys are coming into town like the Yankees came to the southern states after the Civil War. Carpetbaggers, big suitcases full of cash.
Mhm.
And they gave that cash to their 8 selected oligarch banksters inside Russia. Kolomoisky, Berezovsky, et cetera, et al. Those guys bought up all the shares for almost nothing because people, what's this share? It's worth nothing. What's a share anyway? What is a share? A share of
Yeah.
what? I can't do anything. He's going to give me $10. So they bought up all the resources of privatized Russia for cents on the dollar. And now suddenly New York banksters are the owners of all the resources of Russia. And they bribe Yeltsin to make this possible. And then finally, Putin says, the KGB calls Putin and said, "We got to stop this or we're done. Our country is going to be destroyed." So the KGB forces Yeltsin to appoint Putin as his prime minister. Prime Minister Putin uncovers and exposes all the corruption. And he tells Yeltsin, he just goes to Yeltsin, he goes, "You can retire and not go to jail and keep the money that you've stolen, and you name me as your successor, and I'll take over." That's
Yeah.
option A. You don't want to hear option B. So Yeltsin steps down on this New Year's Eve, big event, and Putin becomes the president of Russia.
Mhm.
Putin calls in all the banksters, sits them down at a big banquet in Moscow. Putin's a super spy. Putin has an extremely high IQ. This is a genius.
I
Sits
knew
them
you
down
were
with
I
their
knew you were a Russian propagandist. The Kremlin probably pays you directly.
I mean, being a genius is not a big deal. It's just a stroke of luck that your 2 parents had you, and nobody can take credit for being a genius, right?
Yeah.
Somebody had sex with somebody, and you popped out, and it happens that those genes makes that you're a genius. Big deal. It's what you do with it.
Well
Do you
said.
work as a slave for the system and prove that even geniuses are idiots? Or do you say, "I've got a brain and I'm going to use it to fight them"? Why not?
Well said.
So Putin said, "I'm going to try and save my country." And he brought these oligarchs, 8 or 10 of them, to a big dinner, a banquet, with their wives, black tie. Sat them down in the Kremlin, and they thought it was business like usual, just like them coming in and giving orders to Yeltsin. And Putin gave them each a phone, put it on the table next to them, and said, "You have stolen from Russia this amount of money. It's in this bank account in Switzerland. I need you to phone your banker right now The guards come around the room.
Hmm.
The waiters are all KGB.
And you
These
had a
guys.
dream, and you like visualized
This
this
is
in some
a real.
fantasy of yours.
This is a real event. I've met the people who were in the room when this happened. He goes, call your bank and repatriate that money,
Hmm.
or you'll never leave this Kremlin. You and your wife will never leave this dinner. And in one night, some $30 billion was transferred back to Russia. And he continued to hunt them down. He got Khodorkovsky, put him in jail for 18 years because he continued to hide the money. Berezovsky ran away to England and mysteriously died. Kolomoisky bought up all the media in Ukraine and hired a comedian and made him the president of Ukraine. That's Kolomoisky. Kolomoisky, who's a dual citizen of Israel, left for Israel right away.
Yes, yes, we know him on this channel. Followers will have heard his name mentioned quite a few times.
And he put the comedian in power in Kiev. I have some direct and I have some indirect connections to this. First, the direct connection. So in 2001, I think it's 2001, the Twin Towers went down. I can't remember if that's 2000 or 2001. Can't remember anymore the date. The Twin Towers went down in New York.
You mean the three Twin Towers?
That's right. The Twin Towers and the amazing collapsing tower. It's not good by any way. That collapsed vertically.
No, this
Right.
some science fiction movie. Some science fiction movie we're discussing.
Building number 7.
I think it was number 27 or something like that.
So I was in Tokyo when those
Go on.
buildings were at work at Radio Television Japan. I'm an engineer. I'm a trained engineer. I studied static.
You worked in Radio TV Japan?
Yeah.
Excellent. Just clearing that up because you mentioned it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, remember that little broken down shack that you showed? Yeah. That shack right there is where I moved when I came to Japan. First, I came to Japan when I first arrived. I remember I'm getting away from the police union that might kill me in North America.
Yeah.
I've gone to Southeast Asia. I've gone up to the Himalayas. I meet these guys. I buy the silk carpets. I sell them in Canada. I'm loaded full of cash.
Part one. Find the link somewhere on the channel.
So I go to Japan. I go to the company that these guys gave me basically access to for $1. I find out that I'm an advisor to the biggest companies in Japan. So I better learn something pretty quick, or I'm not going to have my job. So I show up there, and it takes me a little while to get this all set up. It's not like just walk in the first day and take over, but I walk in, I start hearing what's going on. I teach English for a little while. Didn't do that long. Terribly boring and frustrating, but okay. Teach English for a little while. I get a job in the media because I studied political science. I can do media reports and so on. I get hired at NHK. How did that happen? Well, I'm going to kind of censor it so I don't incriminate, but I'm at a particular deep underground nightclub in an atmosphere in which you normally are not able to have a conversation.
With people who like tattoos.
Right. And everything else. Yeah. A Yakuza nightclub.
They're heavy on tattoos.
In which everything is on offer. And there's no police ever coming in that building. And it's in basement number 4. So you go in 4 basements down in a steel hallway that comes to a rotating cylinder, which only has one door in it. When that cylinder is rotated, there's no door. And I'm in there watching the glowing lights. And a guy sits down next to me and we talk politics for about an hour. One of those conversations that never end because nobody knows where they are or what they're talking about. At the end of an hour, he goes, I've been here for 12 years and I'm quitting my job. And in Japan, seniority allows you to invite somebody to replace you. You know more about politics than I've ever heard anybody talk about. I said, yeah, my dad's an exiled political science professor from Eastern Europe. So his roommate was Big Brzezinski, the advisor to the president of the United States.
Mhm.
His other friend is Henry Kissinger. So my whole life, and my uncle, I call Brian Mulroney like my uncle, is actually my godson, hereditary. He's the Prime Minister of Canada. So, and I've been doing politics since I was in junior high school. He goes, do you want a job? I go, well, I'm teaching English or something now. No. Do you want a job working for Radio Television Japan, International World Service in English? I said, well, how? He goes, well, I know this is going to be crazy. We've been up all night now for 12 hours in this electro trance underground Goa trance nightclub with glowing lights and flashing windows and glass floor and movement. It's hard to feel.
In what city?
Where you are. In Tokyo, center of the city.
Tokyo, huh? All right.
Tokyo downtown. And he goes, if you can straighten yourself up, in 5 hours from now, there's the test. Is it 5 hours from now? So he said, I'll recommend you. You just have to pass this test. You just have to edit a couple of documents for an hour. And if you pass, you're in. It's a lifetime position. I said, okay. So I go home and take a half an hour freezing cold shower, drink 10 cups of coffee, go there, write the test, get an A+, and I'm now working for Radio Television Japan as an English editor and announcer and presenter. I meet somebody just by chance after working there. I'm going out with some of these journalists, like literally within a week.
Mm-hmm.
I meet somebody else because it's such a small little community of Western journalists and advisors and so on. It's like everybody knows everybody. And the guy hears that I'm working at Radio Television Japan, which is the top. That's the peak of the system. That's the government mouthpiece. That's the lying MSM of Japan. And he goes, you want to work at the Yomiuri? I go, what's the Yomiuri? He goes, that's the biggest paper in the world. We put out 6.5 million copies a day, 3 times a day, 18 million copies of newspapers. You want to work there in the English section? I said, sure. So I get hired there. Then I get headhunted from the Yomiuri to the American Chamber of Commerce in Japan. I'm anti-American, but I'll edit any piece of garbage. So I get hired by the American Chamber of Commerce in Japan. Well,
Wait, simultaneously? Simultaneously, you're working?
I'm just adding more and more shifts.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm starting working at Radio Television Japan. Radio doesn't work like 40 hours a week. You get a shift here, you get a shift there. When you start, you get 8 hours a week. As you get better, you get 16 hours a week. As you get better, you get more hours. Okay, so I'm doing, let's say, at Radio Television Japan, I'm doing maybe at the beginning, 16 hours a week. They soon bumped me up to 20, but I still had the time to do 40 hours a week at the Yomiuri, which is a full-time daytime job because I just did the night shifts at the radio station.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm living in there. I'm living in there because a friend of mine went first from New York. I stayed in New York to go out in the nightclubs for a weekend, and the other guys went first. And they found this place, and it's free. We don't have to pay any rent. It's in the richest neighborhood in Tokyo. all the houses on both sides of us are Lamborghinis, Porsches, Ferraris, cars I've never seen them, and not even in magazine, lining the street. And there's this shack like that in the middle. And I go, what in the heck is this? They go, it's a haunted house. No Japanese will cut it down. No Japanese will burn it down, demolish it, and no Japanese will live in it. It's empty. So we just went in there and we squatted there.
So you squatted in a haunted house in
I squatted
Japan?
in there for 9 years.
9 years?
In the richest neighborhood in Tokyo, I squatted for free in that shack.
For 9 years. That's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Okay. So you're earning all this money and your costs at zero. Nothing. You eat food. Okay.
Yeah. Like basically
Food
nothing. Especially
and
back then.
And if you eat in the Japanese cafeteria, it's subsidized by the company. So you can eat a full breakfast for $2 at Radio Television Japan. I mean, 4-course breakfast.
Yeah.
Including natto, if you know what natto is. So, okay, all of this plus salmon. This is breakfast in Japan. Rice, salmon, salad, cabbage salad, fresh tomatoes, rice, and natto, and 2 big pieces of salmon sliced. $2. Well, that's breakfast, and then you got lunch. It's go to something called beef gyudon. So you're basically living for a super cheap price.
Yeah.
And I'm now working at the Nikkei business magazine, the #1 business magazine in Japan, the biggest magazine, a newspaper. I'm working at the biggest newspaper in the world. I'm working at the biggest state broadcaster in the world. I'm working at the American Chamber of Commerce in Japan, and I get invited to be the editor of the Foreign Correspondence Club magazine. So I'm working there. So I know all the correspondents, I know all the news stories, and I know them from every perspective because I know the Russian foreign correspondent, the American correspondent, the French foreign correspondent, the Italian foreign. I know them all. So I've got their take on all of these events. And then I can feed this data into the various media where I work and come up with scoops every single day. So they elevate me up the ladder. And soon after, I meet a man named Ted Azuma. And Ted Azuma is a professional translator, and he's the translator for Zbig Brzezinski and Henry Kissinger. And I meet him on a park bench, sitting on a park bench, and he just said, "Young man, can I speak to you?" And I'm wearing a suit and tie, so he knows I'm working somewhere, and I'm well dressed, and he just wants to talk to me. And he sits and talks. Do you know how to play mahjong? I said, no. He goes, well, just come with me. I'm going to play some mahjong, and let's talk. Tell me what you do. And I tell him where I'm working. Mahjong is a gambling game that you play in a mahjong parlor. It's like it's like a card game, but it's played with little bricks.
Okay. I think I've seen it maybe in movies.
Like dominoes on steroids.
Okay, I get it.
And he takes me to the mahjong parlor and he talks to me for 2 or 3 hours about politics, which is actually all I've been doing since I was a teenager. And he goes, "You're really, really good. Do you know what I do?" I said, "I don't know what you do. What do you do?" He goes, "I'm the official translator for visiting American advisors to the Japanese government." I said, "Who?" He goes, "Henry Kissinger and Zbig Brzezinski." And I just said, "Oh, well, my dad was a roommate of Zbig Brzezinski." He goes, "What?" "Oh, yeah, they went to McGill together until Zbig said there's more money south of the border, and he took off, went to the States." Just like that. Oh. And Henry Kissinger knew my father.
Brzezinski went to McGill?
Zbig Brzezinski started at McGill. And he and my father,
I didn't know that.
Same frat house. And my dad was older, and my dad had already been the advisor to the king of Yugoslavia. And my grandfather, who you saw in the general staff uniform, he was the advisor to Franz Josef. Remember? He graduated from Peter Neustadt. And his grandfather was the man who led the Serbian troops who defeated the Magyars in 1848 in that famous painting. So these guys in the Bosnitch family were advisors to kings, heads of state, leaders, and to the Karađorđević dynasty of Serbia from 1804. We were rich, very rich, because we ran this farming business on the border between Austria and Serbia. And we could get the mechanized, really modern at that time, mechanized farming tractors that ran on petrol and replaced the plows that were pulled by oxen. So we became multimillionaires. And money does open doors, obviously, it still does today. My father knew all these people, and when this translator said, "You know those guys?" I said, "Yeah, those are my dad's coevals. They all escaped from communism. They all left, Zbig Brzezinski left Eastern Europe to escape from communism." So my dad and Zbig had something in common. That was they both hated communism. Then they came to Canada, and Zbig liked money a lot. So Zbig went to America and became an advisor to the Democratic Party, and he became the security advisor for Jimmy Carter. And it was Zbig Brzezinski who decided to remove the Shah of Iran, to withdraw U.S. support for the Shah of Iran, because they thought that Zbig Brzezinski was a Pole, and he made a strategic marriage. He married the daughter of the president of the Czech Republic, Beneš. So here's Big Brzezinski, a hardcore extremist Catholic, super well educated, who marries the daughter of the president of the Czech Republic, Beneš. And he goes into exile to the West. He gets a scholarship to McGill because McGill wants to get the smartest brains they can get from,
I really hope this comedy show stays on YouTube so that all the people can enjoy this humor that you're sharing with us.
Big's daughter now is on Morning Joe. She controls the lying mainstream media in the United States. Every single morning you get Mika Brzezinski tell you what?
Freedom and democracy. Freedom and democracy.
Mark Brzezinski, his son, is a top official of the Atlantic Council, which is the propaganda arm of NATO. So everything you hear nice about NATO is being written by Zbig Brzezinski's son. Everything you hear on the morning news and Morning Joe is Zbig Brzezinski's daughter, Mika, telling you that it's all fine, Biden's great, because he's Democrat.
Keep it in the family, huh?
Of course. It's just another dynasty. It's just a monarchy. And they don't even, and the people of America know it, if they're well educated. In any event, this guy, Ted Azuma, says, "Look, I'm the translator for these guys, but you know so much. You should take this card right now, and you should take a taxi and just take this card and show this card." I said, "Where am I going?" He goes, "Prime Minister of Japan's office right now. Put your tie on tight, get in the car." And I get in a taxi. The taxi driver doesn't want to take me to the address. He goes, "I can't go there." And this guy, Ted Azuma, says to me, he says, "You can go wherever this guy's going, show this card." And I go through 6 layers or 7 layers of security, military police, like the Praetorian Guard of the Prime Minister of Japan. They take me right up to the building. There's an escort of 6 police or 7 police, and there's another 10 standing around. And they see the card that Ted gives me, and they go, "Follow me." And they take me right up to the Prime Minister's office, and they say, "That's your desk." And I said, "What am I supposed to do here?" They said, "You're going to be advising." And I said, "About what?" "Everything. Any question we bring you." "How much do you want to be paid?" I said, "What?" They said, "How much do you want to be paid?" I said, "How much did the previous guy get paid?" They gave me a number. I said, I'll take 50% more than that. They said, 50% more? I said, "I don't need to be paid for the first month. If I don't do 100% more better advising in the first month, then you don't have to pay me 50% more. You don't even have to pay me. The first month's free. It's on me. You were right. I was wrong. Bye-bye. He told me to do that. This Japanese advisor told me to do that.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the month, they said, just name your fee. Whatever. Because in 1 month, I think I saved them, I don't know, a couple of million on just a couple of things I advised about.
Yeah.
So money was no longer a factor. Now I'm in all of these journalistic activities, and I become very close friends with two American journalists who are senior. Both of them have been in Japan since the American occupation.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them came in with MacArthur.
What do you mean, American occupation? You mean when freedom and democracy came to Japan after they bombed them?
But Japan is still occupied. Till today, it's an occupied country. It has military bases from a foreign country on its soil, and Japan can say nothing about those bases. But these guys arrived in the 1950s, and they worked with MacArthur. These are super great journalists. They really know what's going on. Now they're both in their post-retirement age. They're 65 or approaching 70. And I work with them in this various other media, and they like my work, and they train me. They teach me how to. I mean, I was not an experienced journalist. I was a journalist, but high school, university, some radio, not serious. These guys trained me how to do journalism: who, what, when, where, how, and why. And why is the most important question. All the rest is just the incidental. Why is this happening? They taught me to search for the why, which nobody searches for
these days.
They just why, who, what, when, where, how. No why.
Or the why is made up. The why is written by the Reuters team.
Okay. Well, so this is the big event. All of this so far has been the buildup. These two men both retire the same year. Both of them happen to work for the oldest company in Japan, Kikkoman, the soy sauce company. If you have that little triangular bottle with the red cap on it, Kikkoman, I could send you that photo. I didn't give you that photo. I've got that photo. But
I'll look it up. I'll look it up while you're talking. Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Right. And so they both work for the president of Kikkoman, and Kikkoman was founded in 1596, and it's still controlled by the same family. Think about that as a hierarchy. There you go. That's it. Yeah. Kikkoman soy sauce.
Yeah.
So one of them is Kikkoman's chief editor for publications worldwide. They're in 160 countries or whatever. And he edits all of their English-based publications, which are then translated into local languages. All the speeches that are translated, all of the documents, everything, recipes, whatever. He edits the English, makes it perfect. The other one is the speechwriter for the president of Kikkoman, because the president of Kikkoman is the vice president of Keidanren. What's Keidanren? Well, when the samurai were thrown out of power, they went into business. And instead of having a samurai council of nobles, the business presidents formed an organization called Keidanren, which is all the company presidents and owners of Japan. Kikkoman, as the oldest company in Japan, is the vice president's seat at that organization.
Yep.
And both of these guys retire, and as the system is in Japan, you recommend your replacement. And without telling me, they both recommended me for their job. So I get a call from the president of Kikkoman when I'm at Radio Japan. And he goes,
"This is age what?"
He's 80.
No, you're how old at this point?
I've now been there I've been there a couple of years. I've been doing journalism. I'm already doing the advising to the Prime Minister's office. That's impressive to the Kikkoman guy. And he calls me. He goes, Mr. Bosnitch, this is Mr. Mogi. I'm the president of Kikkoman, and I'd like you to come into the office. You've been recommended for a position here, and we'd like to meet you.
Mm-hmm.
Shave, like it has to be perfect. Your shoes have to be shined. You have to be like a machine. I come into the office, I sit down, and he goes, I'm in a bit of a conundrum. And this is unusual for a Japanese to use the word conundrum. Turns out that Mr. Mogi was sent by his father to get the first MBA ever earned by a Japanese at Columbia University in New York. So he's really well versed and he speaks excellent English. And he goes, I'm in a bit of a conundrum here, Mr. Bosnitch. May I call you John? John's son? I said, yes, of course. He goes, I have to fill two positions because my two senior editors for Kikkoman, my speechwriter and my document editor, both resigned this year. And the strange thing is they both recommended you. So there are two jobs. I said, well, how much are they paid? May as well ask. He goes, well, this one gets $400 an hour, $400 an hour, and this one gets $400 an hour. This one gets a percentage on the publications, and this one gets a fee per word. I said, what do you mean a fee per word? He goes, well, he gets $1 a word. I said, how many words are there? How long are your speeches? He goes, up to 45 minutes. So I just do a little bit of quick math here. One guy's earning like 12 to 15,000 a month, and the other guy's earning 12 to 15,000 a month on a different formula. I said, so basically you've had two people who you've been paying 400 each to do this job, right? So that's 800 an hour. Because, well, I didn't pay anybody 800 an hour. That's outrageous. I know. But you did pay out for every hour worked by the two of them who are both working here. You paid out 800 an hour for those staff, right? He goes, yes, that's right. I said, okay, I'll accept both jobs for 600 an hour, plus $1 a word, plus percentage on distribution. That came out to roughly $18,000 per speech, plus 10,000 base fee at NHK, plus 5,000 at the Nikkei, because that was part-time, plus 6,000 at the Yomiuri, that was part-time, plus the American Chamber of Commerce, that's 3,000, plus consulting. You got a problem? I've got the answer. And the consulting was such a good business too, because I said, I'm charging more than your previous consultants. Remember those guys in the Himalayas? I'm charging more. I'm charging 50% more because I'm available 24/7. If you have a problem and you need the answer, you can call me 24/7. But just remember that if you call me and the call lasts 3 seconds, you're paying 1 hour. So think before you call me, because if you call me for 3 seconds, ask me one question, you're paying me $600. So put your questions together and call me, and then I'll wake up in my bed, and I'm going to be in 1 minute. I'm ready to work.
Mm-hmm.
So I had all of this going on, and I was just rolling in cash. And I hit age 33, which is the fatal age. This is when Jesus Christ had his mission and so on. And in our family at age 33, it's time to get married. So I thought, you know, I've been watching this mess in Yugoslavia. I'm a journalist. The guy from
This is in
Tanjug,
what year?
1994.
94. All right, because
Yep.
like the mess in Yugoslavia is like, you know.
Starting from 1990, it was a mess. So I
Yeah.
came here in 1990 when the barricades were going up in Knin, and I stayed a few months, and I didn't know enough, and I couldn't speak a word of Serbian, and I just went back to Japan. Um, and I worked in Japan steadily, and then all of these things happened in that 2 or 3 year period.
And that was like 94, basically.
94, and in 94, I decided, okay, I got to get married now, and I had an amazing girlfriend from Canada who I had luck with women. Just say that. And I had to decide whether I would marry her or whether I should marry a Serbian girl. And I didn't know any Serbian girls. I met one. So I said I owe it to my family and I owe it to myself, to my own identity, to see if there's a Serbian girl for me who is more compatible or is more what I should be searching for in life. Came here in 1994, and I was a young man, not ugly, full of cash, employed by the biggest companies in the world, and 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 I went to nightclubs and I went on the street. And I met girls, and I ran into my now ex. I met my wife, and I just took one look at her, and I said, I need to meet this girl, and I met her, and I realized that this is the woman I have to marry. She didn't realize it. She's far from it.
She
It
needed
was
some
far.
convincing, huh?
Yeah, I just wouldn't go away. Not leave.
But as a political scientist, you managed to convince her, right?
Well, she broke up with me 6 times in the 6 months that we were together. And every
Mm.
time I had the same answer, it's okay, you can break up with me. I'm just not breaking up with you. So I'll be over to your place tomorrow and we can watch TV together. You don't touch me because you've broken up with me, and I'll just, hold cuddle you and watch TV together until you decide to come in. And anyway, at the end of the 6 months, we didn't spend that much time together because I spent the working week at Tanyug, editing all the English output of Tanyug, and I went after Tanyug. I went to RTS, Radio Television Serbia, and I edited their English language satellite program until NATO and sanctions knocked it off the air. And
You
then I
mean were you by any chance in charge of playing Wag the Dog when the bombing of '99 started on? Because that was the first thing that they played when the bombing started on
I was
RTS
there.
satellite.
I was there when the decision was made to put that on the television. I was also advising them throughout the bombing and suggesting what should be done. And I'm late for everything. I was late. How many hours late was I for this interview? I mean, hours, right?
Let's not discuss it. But we
Right.
got to know each other well. We won't even
So
say
it's,
what time it is of day now,
well, I
because
mean,
that
it's now 7 in the morning here.
no. It's
Okay.
any time that the viewers want it to be.
Okay, well, it's almost 7 in the morning here, and we started talking about this interview at 7 p.m. yesterday, and I only got to talk to it at like 4 a.m. And I've been blabbing away for 3 hours now, I think, and I've got a
And we haven't
business
even
day ahead.
covered half the pictures. And
Yeah,
this is
I've got
already
a business day
episode
ahead.
2 with you, and
I've
it's
got a
been an hour.
business day ahead of me. I don't sleep much, and I don't need to sleep much. I'm tired. I really
Sleep
make.
is for the weak. I've been saying it my whole life. Sleep is for the
I,
weak.
I make connections faster when I'm very, very stressed and tired because I
I
cut
could.
out all the fat and make the connection. Anyway, I met this beautiful, fragile, amazing woman, and I had to go back to to Japan after a certain period of time. I was reporting from the front, then coming back, seeing her on the weekends, then go back to the front in Bosnia, and then on the battlefield, and then back to see her, and then
You
back
were
to.
reporting on the front in
Oh yeah,
Bosnia.
I
I
was
didn't
on
know
the
that.
front. The work days, I was on the front, or I was in Tanyug or RTS responding to the lying MSM of the West, which was producing all kinds of stories from Srebrenica to God knows what, 24/7. And so I would, yeah, that's all right, whatever. I got the idea that I should chase Christiane Amanpour.
Oh, that one.
So I got a
uh,
rent a car and I
that that
went
name,
wherever.
that name. Sorry to interrupt, but that name brings flashbacks from my childhood. Like, I have like anxiety attacks every time I hear
That's
that
the
name.
machine lie factory. That's like the full on 24/7, no need to oil the machine lie factory. So
Whenever you see her covering a story, you know it's absolute garbage, whatever it is.
I picked the list. Christiane Amanpour, John Pomfret, and Tim Judah. Tim Judah was for the London Times, John Pomfret for the Washington Post, and Christiane Amanpour for CNN. And I just hunted them. That's what I did in Bosnia. I watched the Western media. I saw what they were doing. They didn't know me. I sat down in the press center here in Belgrade, and they just saw another Western guy, and they started saying, "What do you have? I got this. What do you have? What do you got that?" And they just share. So all their stories are the same. I said, I mean, the guy was talking about something happening at a certain location. I said,
Mhm.
"Did you see that?" He goes, "No, no." I said, "That's Tim Judah." I said, "Did did Pomfret see that?" He goes, "No." "Did Christian see that?" "No." "But you all wrote in the first person. I knew that this and that." "Oh yeah, well we share information." I said, "But none of the three of you saw that." "Well, we've got fixers and we got
Sources
helpers."
say, sources
I said, I
familiar
said,
with the
well, I
subject.
said, well, I said, well, who are you quoting? "Well, we're quoting the Croatian government spokesman." "Yeah, but you don't cite him in the article. You say you saw it,
Croatian government.
and you're quoting the Bosnian government spokesman, but you're not saying that it's a Bosnian government spokesman. You're quoting some Muslim guy who you interviewed on the street, but you're here in Belgrade with me. How you got your Dateline Sarajevo?" He goes, "Don't you know how this works?" "Well, I'm new here. I'm working for Yomiuri, and I'm working for Radio Japan." And he goes, "What's your name?" I go, "John." He goes, "Okay. Well, look, John." And they talked to me a little bit more again. I talked another half an hour. And he goes, "What's your family name?" I said, "Bosnitch." He goes, "You're from here?" I go, "No, I never lived here. My father's from here."
No,
He
eh?
goes, and he
I'm
goes,
from
"What's
Canada,
your
eh?
father's
Sorry.
Hey, what? He goes, "What's your father's name?" I said, "Sava Bosnich." Professor, he goes, "Sava, you're Serbian?" And I go, "Yeah, what?" He goes, "I'm not talking to you anymore." And then the other guy goes, "I'm not talking to you."
Racist.
And then, "I'm not going to talk to you anymore." And I said, "Hold it. Here are all the reports that I've made. Not one thing that I've reported is undocumented. I have the video, I have the audio, I have the name of the person I interviewed, I have the geo coordinates of where I was and the time
You're
that I
doing
was there."
actual reporting in a war zone? What are you, crazy?
I was
Like,
taught by those guys over there who were working for Kikkoman before I went. You know how I went? I moved up really high in the on the ladder in the journalists really really quickly in Japan, and they said, "Look, you speak multiple languages and you got a lot of political science background. When heads of state come here, we want you to go to the press conference." So Turkish president comes, I question him. Boutros Ghali comes, Secretary General of the UN, I question him. I'm the guy who's asking him questions.
On behalf
Richard
of
Hall
Japan, you're saying.
in Japan, yeah. I'm at the second biggest press club on earth,
Mm-hmm.
and all the heads of state are coming to Japan because they want money.
Yeah.
They want to get money from Japan. They're occupied territory. You can go take money from them. That's why you occupied them. So I can grill these guys when they're at the press conference, and I look like, I don't look like a troublemaker. Maybe I do now, but then I was in, wet behind the ears, young guy, tightly tied tie and Canadian accent. He's one of ours.
We can all
And
clean up.
I would always put my hand up like this. I'd sit in the front and go, oh, 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 like a kid. And they'd always give me the question because he's obviously harmless. And then I would drop the bomb on them. This happened for a while, and then the Japanese said, "Could you stop embarrassing these guys?" I said, "I'm just asking questions based on what they said publicly." And so the Yomiuri removed me from the news desk, and they put me on the finance desk.
Mm-hmm.
The Nikkei removed me from the finance desk and put me on the news desk, and I still did the same thing. They got the news line. Anyway, this went on for a little while longer, and finally they sent me over here. And when they sent me over here, I skewered all of these lying journalists.
Oh, so you were here on behalf of
Media.
Japanese TV.
Japanese TV, Japanese Yomiuri, because I was sending back reports that were totally opposite of what Germany, England, France, and America were telling them was happening.
The Russian propaganda, basically.
Well, deep state propaganda.
Reality, also known as reality.
And everybody stood by me. They said, so long as you've got the video and you've got the voice and you've got it geolocated,
well, yeah,
then you're going to go. And so they gave me the first Inmarsat telephone in the world, except for Boutros Ghali and Yasushi Akashi. I was the first journalist on Earth to have a briefcase this big that could call anywhere on the Earth using marine navigation satellites that are always visible, because that's how boats and airplanes work. And I had that in a little.
Yeah.
I got that from the president of NEC, Nippon Electric Corporation.
Yeah.
I wanted that device. I knew it existed. So I went to one of his press conferences, and the Americans don't like NEC because it's a nationalist company, super patriotic Japanese company. And they asked him about the rape of Nanking. It's really embarrassing for Japanese.
Yeah.
And I saw my opportunity. And when he was humming and hawing and not answering the Voice of America and AP Reuters questions, I stuck my hand up. I said, could I interject with a supplemental question? And he wanted a way out. So he goes, yes, you young man there, what? I said, genocide is an interesting term. And we know that the main genocide in modern history was the American ethnic cleansing and mass murder of the entire population of North America. Now, I know that these American reporters here, I'm Canadian, by the way, these American reporters here who occupy my country, and they occupy your country, are asking you to apologize for the alleged massacre at the so-called rape of Nanking. And I know you're under pressure from their questions. So I was wondering, since the Americans have never apologized for slavery, and they've never apologized for massacring the entire population of North America, not 50,000, not 100,000, not whatever, 300,000. We're talking millions to the last man, woman, and child. They killed them all.
Yeah.
So could I suggest that you make a commitment that as soon as America apologizes for massacring all the native peoples of North America, and as soon as they apologize and compensate the blacks who they kidnapped, murdered, raped, and enslaved, as soon as they apologize for that, could you please put your response to their question about Nanking first on the agenda? He goes, yes, I promise. There was no answer then. And at the end of the meeting, he comes over and goes, you're a very unusual young man. What's your background? I said, Serbian. He goes, you mean the ones that they're bombing over there? I go, yeah. He goes, how can I help? And I said, I hear you've got a satellite phone that's this big and that Yasushi Akashi has it and that Boutros Ghali has it. He goes, yeah, that's true. There are 4 of them on Earth. I have one and there's one other. I said, what do I have to do to get that other one? He goes, after what you did today, nothing. It's yours. You don't have to pay anything. All calls are free. You pay nothing. Just one thing. If you get captured, pull the cord here, pull the chip out, and either bite it with your mouth or step on it. Because the entire machine is run by one microchip right there, and nobody in the world knows how it works. I gave my word, and he goes, you know, I heard that you Serbs are kind of like samurai. I said, yeah, that's right. My family are what's called granichari. We're the border guards, and we held back Islam for 400 years, and we never surrendered. He goes, just as I knew. It's a pleasure to have you here in Japan. And after that, he called the Prime Minister's office. My status went up. All doors were open. I had the 2 jobs there at Kikkoman. Kikkoman was the advisor, the Kikkoman president's the advisor to the Prime Minister. They took me to the Prime Minister's office and they sat me down again and they said, okay, Mr. Bosnitch, now we know what you can do. We've got a problem. I said, what's the problem? They said, we didn't discuss this with you before, but the problem is that the Soviets stole 4 Japanese islands at the end of World War II. The Northern Territories. I said, you mean what the Russians call the South Kurils? No, it's the Northern Territory. Okay. So fine. It's just a question of perspective.
Oh, I sense some more emotional damage coming.
And they said,
keep going.
Can you help us with this? I said, sure. They said, what can you do? I said, I can get those 4 islands back for you. You want them back? I was, what? We've been trying to get those 4 islands back since 1945. It's the number 1 central pillar of Japanese politics for 60 years. You can do that? I said, yeah, 6 months. How? What? How? That's up to me. In 6 months, you're going to see the initiative starting. They said, well, what do we have to do? I said, well, it's going to cost you some money. Not for me. I'm happy with my salary. If I get any more money, I'll die of alcoholism or whatever. You know, I can't take any more money. Send me to Moscow. They said, send you to Moscow? I said, yeah, send me to Moscow. Well, we'll give you a delegation. I said, no. Will you go first class, JAL? We'll give you no, nobody. Send me on Aeroflot economy, and I don't need a hotel. I can stay in a youth hostel. If I go in a hotel, everything I do is going to be listened to. If I go first class with JAL, I'm going to be tracked. I'm going to be tracked from the minute I leave Tokyo by the Americans.
Are we getting to the Bobby Fischer part? Are we getting to the Bobby Fischer part?
Yep, right now.
Do we leave that for part 3? Because we were already an hour and 20 in it.
I'm not going to deal with Bobby Fischer. I'm just going to tell you what happened.
All right.
They put me on my 3rd class Aeroflot flight. I checked into the youth hostel in Moscow. I took the number of a guy who worked in the Russian embassy in Tokyo.
This is late 90s?
This is 2002.
Okay.
2001. 2. Just after the towers went down.
Mm-hmm.
Crisis time. America's starting a war on everybody all over the world. 7 countries in 7 years. Whatever. Everybody's nervous. I have my own money. I didn't even take any money from them because I said, if I don't succeed, you owe me nothing. It's just I had a trip to Moscow. It's always good. Just a hint for people who like getting access to power. Tell them how much you need to be paid. They're going to be shocked. It's too much. Then refuse to accept it unless you succeed. And then give yourself 1 month to show results. Because they've been going on it. They've been working on it for 60 years and results zero. So anything you do in 1 month is going to be more than they did in 60 years, and you're on and you get the money that you wanted. Anyway, I go to the foreign ministry in Moscow. I just cold call. Ding, ding. Hi, I'd like to meet a deputy minister. You go, who are you? I said, well, I'm not here on behalf of my main employer. And I showed the holographic card, Prime Minister of Japan's Access Office. And I'm not here for the Yomiuri, and I'm not here for Radio Television Japan, and I'm not here for the American Chamber of Commerce, and I'm not here for the International Foreign Correspondents Club. I'm here for the Nikkei. The Nikkei is a business magazine, and they want information about your economy. We can't give you. I said they want that. I don't want that. I don't care. I just work there. They said, what do you want? I said, I want to give you the greatest present that anybody has ever given to Russia for free. And they go, well, what's that? I said, I need a meeting now with somebody who, I need a controlled access meeting now. And so an undersecretary comes out and sits down. And I say, are you aware of the nuclear reactors that we've got in Japan? They go, yes. I said, do you know that they are from the same General Electric Corporation that produced the parts used in the models used in 3 Mile Island that melted down? No. Okay, now you got a piece of information. Because we had a $6 billion trade imbalance with the United States because they buy our cars because they're much better than their garbage, the United States gave an ultimatum to the Prime Minister's office that we have to balance the trade. Japanese customers will not buy any American garbage. So we had to buy an invisible product.
We, you mean Japan, yeah?
Japan. For Japan, right? We.
Yeah.
The first thing they said, you're not Japanese. I said, neither are you. What does that have to do with anything? Anyway, then I went on to the topic. And then I said, those reactors are defective. We know that. And they're going to melt down. We don't know when. We don't know where. We need an alternative source of energy. And the only alternative that is not controlled by the United States, who forced us to buy the defective reactors, is your oil. So here's my present. We're going to build and pay for a pipeline from Siberia to the Pacific Ocean to bring us gas. It's going to cost you somewhere between $3 and $10 billion. We're paying for that. To cover that, this is secret. Now it's not secret, but then it was secret. To cover that, we need to have a major event. So I want to hold a strategic conference between Japan and Russia. They said, but we're enemies. I said, no, we're not. Japan's a non-military, even though we got a massive military, we're like neutral. We're an occupied American colony, and officially we're not at war with anybody. We have no army officially, even though we have monster army. So we want to hold Russia-Japan strategic conference. And I want to rent the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg. So you want to rent the #1 museum and historic site in our country? I said, yeah. Are you crazy? I said, no. Can you get on the phone and find out how much it costs? You can't rent the Winter Palace. I said, could you please get on the phone and find out? This is chaos in Russia now. It's like, this is 2001. Putin is in, Yeltsin is out. I went to the airport, Sheremetyevo airport in Moscow, had no lights, had no electricity. The waitress ate what was left on my plate because she had no
American
food.
propaganda. This is like CIA propaganda now.
The truth. The waitress ate what I left on my plate. So I bought another meal for her to eat a full meal. I said, here's what I propose. 3-day conference in the Winter Palace. Not the Hermitage Museum, but the Residence Palace. And I'll give you 100,000 US dollars per day for 3 days. Cash. Get on the phone, please, and get authorization. I'm going to call the Bank of Tokyo right now. If you say yes, that money will instantly be here. Get your bank, tell me the coordinates. And I've got one phone, and I got 2 phones, and he's got 1 phone. And in 15 minutes, there's a state level transfer of $300,000. And the conference is on. And I give him a list of 125 people that I need at the conference, which I've drawn up with my advisor, really genius guy, Ogo-san, late Ogo-san at the Nikkei, who has drawn up the 125 key company presidents in Japan and has drawn up the 125 parallel presidents in Russia. And we're going to bring these 250 people together at the Winter Palace, and we're going to make a deal. And we're going to get a pipeline. We're going to get the gas. You're going to get the money. We're going to open relations between Japan and Russia. And by becoming friends and partners, you're going to get your 4 islands back. Conference is held. We need facilitators for the conference. So Ogo-san flies over. We go together to Moscow and St. Petersburg. And he goes, we don't have any facilitators. We need people who speak English and Japanese speak English and Russians speak English, but Japanese don't speak Russian and Russians don't speak Japanese, so they can speak English. And how are we going to find people who speak English? I said, well, I've got a good idea. And he knows my ex-wife is like supermodel and her cousin is supermodel. I said, get in the car, let's go. And we go to the top 5 modeling agencies in Russia and we hire 125 most beautiful women in the world.
To be your translators.
They are
for a political conference.
And they hold the drum and they make the 2 people talk to each other.
And you did all of this so that you'd have a script for this comedy show, basically.
and the deals are signed and the pipeline goes ahead and it's been built.
Is this the Sakhalin pipeline?
Yep.
This is
the
Sakhalin.
East Siberia to ESPO. East Siberia to Pacific Ocean gas line. ESPO. We did that.
And what about
we did it one weekend with the help of 125 super gorgeous Russian supermodels.
Who spoke English?
And I, being a good husband, not even batted an eye at them.
One would expect you as an honorable Serb.
That's right.
As well.
And so then we held that conference, and I went back to Tokyo, and we immediately invited them for the return conference because now we've got the pipeline going, and we want to build a Shinkansen from Tokyo to Bar on the Adriatic. I put that in. They were just going to do it to Europe. I said, no, we're going to do a Shinkansen. We're going to go ocean to ocean. We're going to go to the Mediterranean to the Pacific. So we had a plan to build a super high speed. I mean, this is magnetic levitation train.
Yeah.
In the future. We could not even build it at that time.
Mm-hmm.
We would start with a rail bed for Shinkansen. And why Shinkansen? Why not TGV European garbage? Because Shinkansen has a monster gyro in each train set. And it can carry oil, coal, gold, anything. Whereas TGV, Train de Grande Vitesse, can only carry passengers. And it derails with just passengers. The Japanese Shinkansen is so much more powerful, so much stronger, that you can fill the entire train with solid gold and it will never derail. So my next trip was to go there to get them to agree to let us build the super speed train across the country.
John.
Wait, it's the end. This will be the to be continued here. Here we go.
All right.
So we invite the Russians to come to Tokyo right after we finish the first conference in which the pipeline is agreed. 12 months before the next conference, we will hold it in Tokyo. 11 months, 10 months, with telegrams, hand-delivered, invitations, everything. 1 week before the conference, nobody has responded to say they're coming yet. Whole year, it's like increasing tension. What did we do wrong? Why are they not coming? 72 hours before the conference, the Russians say, yeah, we'll be there. See ya. Bye. just coming 125 Russian corporate heads, presidents, corporation, everybody, plus another 100 KGB and security advisors and translators and everybody. And there's not one available room in Tokyo for 6 months back. And the guy, the president of the Nikkei, comes to me and goes, I've got to commit seppuku. I have to kill myself. The biggest, most important delegation ever to come to Japan in the history of Japan is coming, and we don't have anywhere for them to sleep. And we have nowhere
seppuku being what's commonly
harakiri.
misnomered as harakiri. Yeah.
And they say, it's over. I'm finished. And I said, no, you're not. Right by chance, complete coincidence, what we Serbs call sudbina, fate. The biggest ever urban development project in the history of Tokyo is taking place right at that moment, and the place opened 1 week earlier. The massive Roppongi Hills Tower, built with Yakuza money on Yakuza reclaimed land, with the address 666 and a big black spider over the entry. Just opened a week earlier, and it's got the Charles Cinq Hotel. It's got the best of everything in the whole world. I tell the president, Nikkei, get me a limo, get me the biggest limo, give me a 6-door stretch limo, get me the most beautiful girl in the Nikkei. We got, a couple of thousand workers. Get her here, get her in uniform. I'm going down there to Roppongi Hills. I get in the car. I call from the car telling the president of Mr. Mori Tower, this is the guy that Trump modeled himself on. There are Mori Towers across Japan, Mori Tower 21, Mori Tower 23, Mori Tower 24. Trump copied this guy. I call Mori up. He can barely speak English. And his secretary comes on. This is Mr. Mori's executive secretary. Who are you? I said, I'm an advisor to your prime minister, and I'm an advisor to the Nikkei president, and I'm coming down to see Mr. Mori. And you better wake him up, because this is the most important meeting of his life. Bye. See ya. And Mori's got his private police army there when I get there. Takes me up to the top. I can give you the photo. I'll find that photo for when you want to see it. I'm on the top of the world in a glass dome, and the Tokyo Tower, which is like the Eiffel Tower, is below me. And Mori is sitting there. He's agreed. And I bring the delegation, and he closes the top 10 floors of the tower, and we turn it into our hotel. And we take over, and we put 1 floor of KGB, and we hold a meeting, and we agreed to open the Shinkansen line from Tokyo to Bar on the Adriatic. And the key interchange point is Kiev. And that's why everything happened in Kiev. Because if that Shinkansen had been built, and if Kiev was still what it was with Yanukovych, then America would lose control over its number one ally, Japan, and Europe would deal with Asia directly over a super-speed, high-speed rail train, and America would be cut out. That's what happened. We agreed on that, and I was about to hold the 3rd conference to implement. Bobby Fischer shows up in Tokyo, says, and I'm at the Prime Minister's office, and Bobby Fischer is arrested. And he's arrested for playing chess.
Hold on.
In Serbia.
No. This is that you? Is that you right there?
And that's Bobby. That's the day we got him out after 9.5 months of fighting.
All right, we'll
He shows
leave
up.
that as a
He shows up.
cliffhanger. We'll leave that
He
as a
shows up.
cliffhanger.
I resigned from all my jobs.
No. You can't tell me now. You can't tell me now. We got to stop this recording.
All my jobs, and I defend Bobby, and I free Bobby, and Bobby goes into exile in Iceland. I have to leave Japan.
Bobby,
I go to Washington.
Time out. No, we got Bobby. We got your opinion on NATO, how it ties into Ukraine, what's going on elsewhere. John, this has been unbelievable. You've broken all the records. As you've said all the keywords, and this is, I think, both of these episodes are the longest Working Brother Talks we've had. Everybody who stuck around to the end of the second top with John, thank you. Like, share, subscribe. If you like what I do, check out the Patreon link. Check out all the links to John's stuff that I'm going to leave in the description as well. And John, any final words before we get into the third episode?
Yeah, I guess to be continued.
All right, excellent. Play some music. Everyone, thank you.